Jobs empower individuals, reduce poverty, enhance well-being, and drive social stability and economic growth. Africa's largest and growing age group, its youth population, is also its least gainfully employed. Of Africa's over 400 million youth aged between 15 and 35, an estimated 2/3 are either unemployed or vulnerably employed. By 2050, Africa is expected to account for 1/4 of the world's working age population, making youth employment a critical issue not just for Africa, but for the rest of the world. As part of the Oxford Martin School's Future of Development program, this podcast series, Africa Which Way Employment, delves into strategies for creating decent jobs that elevate incomes and ensure economic progress across the continent. Hello, and welcome to Africa Which Way Employment, a series dedicated to unpacking the multifaceted nature of the continent's employment landscape, showcasing individuals and initiatives that are driving positive socioeconomic outcomes, and inspiring actionable solutions to inclusive livelihoods, job creation, and economic equity. My name is Oluwatamilore Oni, and today I'm joined by Bayo Adekanmbi, one of the leading data and innovation minds on the continent. Bayo has over 22 years of experience leading advanced analytics and data strategy for Africa's two largest telcos, with over 250 million subscribers across more than 30 African countries. He's recognized as one of the top 50 data innovators globally, and he's been awarded by organizations such as the Gates Foundation and UNESCO. He is the founder of Data Science Nigeria, and published author, and has published numerous papers on AI research, and the list goes on and on, but we don't have time to read his full bio. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's amazing I know that with all these schedules and different activities early in the year as well, people are kicking off projects. I appreciate you taking out the time to come and share your insights. And I know that I'm going to learn a lot, and everyone who watches and listens is going to learn a lot as well. In this episode, we're going to focus on the future of work and skills, specifically how emerging technologies like AI will impact the labor market and how job seekers can become future-proof. We'll also be talking about how or what African governments, policymakers, implementers, programmers need to be doing to be able to ensure that we're providing economic opportunity for our growing youth population for local and global relevance. Bayo, thank you again. Okay. And we'll go into the questions now. I'm starting off asking my guests to share one job search story from their past. That's funny, or maybe not so funny. Something good or bad, maybe.
Well, I think I will remember two cases, and these are early 90s to early 2000, when getting a job, you have to gate crash. In those days were days of banks. The most meaningful job a graduate could do for at that time was working in a bank. Yeah. And the way it works, there was no internet, nothing. You just get to know that, oh, there's a test, somewhere in VI. You just get to know that there's something and all of that. So you just rush there. And there are days that you get to know a few hours till you get there, you realize that it's finished and you had no opportunity and all of that. It's just very fun. And of course, we also had instances of a lot of exploiters at that time as well, who will go into a popular newspaper like Guardian. At that time, Guardian newspaper on Thursday, I think, was the only source of information for all job vacancies at that time. So there were people who would go there and advertise that, oh, you got a job already, apply. And as soon as you apply, they have an automated way of sending you a letter. You got in a job, come to worry. In those days, they say, come to worry. But before you come, you have to pay some money and all of that. So right. A lot of funny stories, yes. Because the jobs were not converged. There was no source of information, no source of verification. And of course, you spend a lot of time running here and there before you get the job of your dreams.
Thank you for
very
sharing.
interesting story.
I would say that so the main purpose of me asking that question is to kind of humanize the job seeker journey. And I think it's something that everyone has experienced. Like everyone has looked for some sort of income generating opportunity, and usually through a job.
You're right.
And so it's not something that is far-fetched or something that is far away.
It's so real.
It's real and very relevant in everyone's lives.
Right.
I want to take us back a little bit to, I believe it's 2019. I saw this quote from something that you had said in an article online. This is, I think you said this in 2019. You were like, data is the new oil. Therefore, the data economy must be powered by data governance. And this is pre the launch of ChatGPT. This is pre how, now AI is essentially a household word or phrase in the way that it was probably more niche to some certain groups of people then. And everything has changed. I think everyone is more aware, even if people don't really understand how it impacts them personally. What would you say is something that job seekers should be thinking about when it comes to AI, either AI skills or understanding AI as a tool or a platform? Is there, if you could send a message to all job seekers in Africa right now about the future of work and emerging technologies, what would it be?
Well, like is been said again and again, AI is an enabler, and AI may also be a source of disadvantage for many people, just as we have digital skill making a lot of people becoming redundant. There was a time that if you want to type in government workstation, you have to use a typewriter. Now, if all I've learned in school is typewriting and shorthand, it means that as soon as computer came, I had no job. So to every young African looking for a job, AI is a multiplier. Number one, it enables any fundamental area of domain you are working in, whether it's nursing, whether it's fashion designing, whether even being an influencer. AI is such an enabler that if you integrate it, it can help you to do much more. And then for those who are more interested in core tech domain area, AI opens new vista of opportunity to do much more, especially those with numeric foundational skill set. You can become so much in the area of AI as much as possible. And third, to those who don't care, they may wake up one day and realize that a robot can do their job better. And that's why we say that AI may take people's job, but it will only take the jobs of people who don't care about learning about AI and how to use AI as a complement to what they do.
Mm-hmm. This reminds me of, there was a World Economic Forum report that came out in 2020, and they were predicting that by 2025, which is this year, AI would replace, I think the estimate was around 85 million jobs thereabouts, or 82 million jobs, and then it would then create an additional 90-something million jobs.
Yes.
I think it's about 97 million jobs. That was 5 years ago. And in the last 5 years, things have changed dramatically.
So rapidly.
Fast forward to more recently, Goldman Sachs report says that it would then replace 300 million jobs by 2030. So that number has almost quadrupled. And similar, they've pushed the date forward, but just so that there's been an acceleration of the capabilities of this technology. One of the ways that I guess different organizations and the government try to prepare young people for the future is through skills and training, right? I think job training is one of the key pillars of any sort of job intervention policy. I think they're called active labor market policies, and job training is a big pillar. And that's part of the work that you do at Data Science Nigeria. Can you share more about Data Science Nigeria more broadly, the work that you do, and some of the successes that you've had with your training programs?
Good, thank you. So Data Science Nigeria started, interestingly, while I used to, maybe that will also provide the context. I used to do data and analytics for the largest telco at that time, MTN in Nigeria. And while I was working, there was also a need for me to go do my PhD in the UK. So I went to do my PhD, also learning about AI. And when I came back, it was clear to me that there was a major disconnection between the academic community and the industry community. And now with the reputation I have, had a PhD, and I work in the industry, I could engage the academic community on training for the industry. And of course, also in allowing the industry to also benefit from the intellectual rigor that comes from academics as well, because there is a converged capability exchange. If proper system is created. And that was what led to Data Science Nigeria. How do we create a system that allows for building talents of the future who combines industry best practices and academic rigor? So I was teaching myself when we started to help young people to learn what they need. And I look at what they learn in school. You see a graduate of computer science who doesn't understand some fundamental that are needed in the industry. So we started creating our own curriculum that makes you ready for work, because I had worked in the industry. So that explained why we had a lot of early success. That as early as 2018, 2019, a bank like Access Bank, this is in public domain, could call us to come become a pipeline for their young data scientists. Or a KPMG as early as 2017 could engage us as a channel to have access to talent, because we're training them with job readiness mindset. And that is one of the things that are missing. How are we training? So that is how Data Science Nigeria started, which is building industry-ready skills that combine very robust industry best practices and academic rigor in a very hybrid curriculum that focuses on what you need to learn. So we developed those learning content. Of course, when we started with Data Science Nigeria, and then over time we evolved beyond Nigeria with the new entity called Data Scientist Network. And it's to preserve the name DSN, because that's the name that people have come to know. But we also move beyond just training people to learn, also helping to deploy them on the job. Working with a lot of organizations in Nigeria who are looking for talents to build talent. So we started by saying, do you have a problem you want to solve? Bring your data. The likes of Azam Manzat, for example, bring your data, we'll train our guys, and they'll work on your data, and they will be as they are ready for your job, because that's what we used to train them. That was our model. So we're using boot camps, special project-based intervention, mentorship program intervention, learning clubs. So we today we have over 100 AI learning clubs on campuses and in cities as a platform to get people to learn by doing. Learn by doing and all of that. And because that has helped us to scale our work, because now virtually every company wants DSN to help supporting capacity building. But of course, we move beyond just talent development to also solution development, consulting, policy work, and of course, startup incubation as well.
Yeah. But in the network, which countries or geographies do you operate in?
So largely we are in East Africa, we're in West Africa, and North Africa as well, and Europe, particularly in the UK.
Amazing, and congrats to you and the team for the
you.
foresight and also all the investments that you've made
Thank
to
you.
create a foundation for this network to continue growing and
Thank
have
you.
positive impact on economies across the continent.
Thank you.
I think one question that's also coming to my mind now, and there's quite a few different things, so I'm trying to figure out which direction. I think take it back to the training piece. When it comes to some of the empirical evidence around job training and the effectiveness, and just to be a little bit more critical here about what needs to either change or improve about the job training programming that most organizations employ. There's a World Bank researcher called David McKenzie who estimates that out of every 100 person that gets trained in a job training program, only 3 gets placed into a job. Now, this is across all different types of programs. Some people can say they don't a 1-week program, and that equates to job training. Some people can do 2 years worth of. So it's difficult to say, okay, there's like a uniformity, like this is they're all, going through the same rigorous process. But what do you think needs to change with regards to anyone who's designing training programs? Because there's a lot of training that's actually happening, but the feeling and the sentiment, and we're talking about this training fatigue, is that it feels like that doesn't necessarily translate into a job in terms of like a full-time job. There's maybe gig economy and all of that, or some sort of business that's been started. How do you think that people who are designing job skills training can be more thoughtful and also be more impactful in their work?
Thank you. I think for me, what I've learned, maybe because of the way we started, we were more outcome oriented, which means that it's not just about training, it's about the job. So I call it learning to earning, so that we know why we are trained. Because most of the time, people are training just to tick the box. And of course, to use that to package something for some development organization that we're training. But if it is what you do every day, in my previous life, I speak lead data every day. And I'm talking about the largest consumer data every day. So it's a lifestyle. And I could see that the same thing we were doing in the organization I work for can be replicated everywhere. So if the same number of talent can be applied, it means that more young Nigerians will get jobs, So my principle is be outcome focused. What do I want to achieve as a designer of a training? Because what you want to achieve will let you know that, maybe 1 week is not sufficient. Maybe 1 month should be the minimum, or maybe it should be 6 months. And if it's going to be 6 months, what kind of incentives do I need to put at various learning milestones to ensure that I'm able to encourage the learner to go through the cycle? If also the standard is going to be longer, how do I also ensure that my entry criteria is also rigorous? That I'm also bringing in people who are motivated, and I'm not just bringing everybody who is around me.
Let me pause you there.
Yeah.
So I'll pause you there on 2 things. So
Good.
the first one is on the incentives piece. I
Yes.
find that really interesting. So you're saying, thinking about the learning journey as a series of milestones to, proficient, maybe excellent proficiency.
Yeah.
How have you experienced or used that in your own training model? And then also maybe just keep it at the back of your mind is that the second question about selection processes. The question here is, for youth employment, especially as that's one of the major issues, there's just so many people who are in the labor market who are not in any sort of tangible or meaningful income generating opportunity. A lot of them don't have the foundational education skills. So if you kind of weed out kind of like the cream of the crop, maybe that's also necessary for like AI skills. How do you then think about it at scale for people who are already past that maybe 15 to 35 as they usually use as the window? How do you then solve for people who might not meet those thresholds? But let's go back to the first question about the milestones and incentives.
So for me, I think the milestone recognizes the fact that learners have so many other things that is chasing them. They're not living for the training, they want money. The more we're objective oriented, that this guy who is going through this rigor of coding or coming to a class or learning digital skill wants to learn with a view to earning money. When that mindset is very there at the beginning, it helps us to design what works, not for us, but what works for the learner. And of course, sometimes I see people who also set wrong expectations. I've had people tell somebody that, you come to our training, you become a data scientist in 3 months. I say, how? How to leave my full-time job to go to PhD to become an AI engineer? So how can you do a campaign and say, you can be an AI engineer? What are you teaching them? Then that now takes me to setting wrong expectations, and it can be very frustrating. That somebody told me that I will become an AI engineer, and I became something, and I went to present myself for a job, and I was considered unqualified. Which means that we also need to have, learning categorization. So there's something I call level 0. Level 0 means I can use basic digital tool, and I can use a lot of drag and drop low code or no code platforms, which is what many entrepreneurial business require. I tell you, that offers us a lot of opportunity where, I want to do a model. I don't need to write codes. All I need to do is to drag and drop, almost like use of basic Excel. And what we have seen in the last 1 year is the ability to bring some of those advanced machine learning, AI, possibilities into Excel sheets, such that if your data is not large, it's not more than 100,000 rows, why not do it there? So can the trainers also become experts who can miniaturize learning and box it into Sachet? I call it Sachet-learning. Okay. So Sachet-learning, that, this guy just need to learn this and make it very clear that what you have learned is a low-code, no-code solution. So this is what it is for you. So these are the kind of job you can do. Don't give me a bicycle and tell me that I can run like a Lamborghini. That's unfair on me.
Well, so the idea here is that with this, once they kind of sacharize, if we call it that, the different segments of the learning journey, they can then have earning opportunities within each step.
That's actually where I'm going next. That, if I put it in Sachet for you, there is a skill set we call knowing data, use a digital platform, then you can annotate data. That is for me, digital 0. And I tell you, it's a big one, even in other parts of the world. In India today, there's a company called Karya, Karya. They are collecting audio and video data for Indian languages. And they work with people who have just basic primary school education or even not even secondary school education. All they do is just digital zero, how to use a digital tool. Because you're going to use a digital tool like a phone to collect the data and all of that. And they're earning digital money. They're earning digital currency. I didn't promise them that they're going to become an AI engineer. Your job is just collect, manage, and upload. That is your job. And they're interacting with data. It's a digital job because they're not manually doing it. So that's an example. So if we understand those learning milestones and we're able to incentivize learner, primarily by being very clear about learning outcome, going back to pedagogy of education 101. Every learning, it's just like a classroom. They ask you, teacher, you want to teach mathematics. What is the learning outcome? Can you give me a learning plan or a lesson plan? Can we, the trainer, be more intentional about learning and go back to what education is called student-centered learning, where we learn through the lens of the learner. How do they want to learn? They want to be motivated. They want to be incentivized. They want to learn something that works based on their current skills so that they can start earning almost immediately. Maybe when they start earning immediately, then that can incentivize them to say, oh, what you're learning is level 0. Do you know that if you learn coding, you may be able to bring in more data and do much more than you're doing today? And beyond coding, do you know that if you learn some mathematics and statistics, you can go a lot higher? And then after that, oh, do you know if you know some engineering, cloud, and all of that, you can go a lot higher. So when that levels are clear, then people can stay where they belong while being rewarded where they have chosen. That, okay, I don't think I can go further. Let me stay here and start earning. I think that would be very fair. What I've seen is that our training agenda are not transparent. Most of the training programs that I've seen, I just laugh. Like I told you, I saw one advert that just become an AI engineer in 3 months. I said, it's unfair. It's unfair.
Yeah.
It's unfair. Because we set wrong expectation and people finish and they are frustrated because they thought they have the skill, but the skill is not meeting the bill.
Thank you. And I think it's interesting, this model of, like, I guess, breaking down the learning journey into phases and then also rewarding at each phase to also then keep up the momentum and motivation to complete. But then I also wanted to touch on the second part, which was about selecting the right candidates to go into a training program. And I guess also adding this to your policy work and the experience that you have kind of either doing advisory or consulting for different policy platforms. I think DSN was part of the National AI Strategy for Nigeria.
Yes. And several others as well.
And several others. Yeah. But this one, I had read some parts of it, and there's a piece that says that the national strategy was, one of the aims is to provide a foundational baseline to catalyze homegrown innovations through intentional local capacity building. And one of the questions I had when I was reading through this is that it feels like you're maybe trying to run it before you can walk, in a sense, because it feels like there's so much foundational questions that needs to be answered around our literacy and numeracy and education systems, which DSN can't solve for. It's more a government and policy and sort of like infrastructure and structural issue. But then how do you then address all the youth who are out there who then need some sort of intervention, might not be able to make the cut for an AI digital skills program? Are there ways that you think, and again, this is probably, it's outside of your wheelhouse, but I'm just intrigued to know if you have any thoughts about how that we can bridge that gap in some way or the other and upskill our workforce?
I tell you, there's an opportunity. I call that segment informal youth segment. They're quite good. They're large, especially if we look at our demographics. 17.2 years as average age of Nigeria, so which means that we have a lot of young people.
Yeah.
And not all of them are not urban youth. The typical job searching and all of that. Some of them are doing basic jobs. They're vulcanizers. They're doing other things. One of the things that we need to start doing is what I call job multiplier and job enrichment. And that's why it's not, everybody should not just think I have to end up coding and all of that. But there is an opportunity to enrich what they're currently doing. How do I bring some basic digital capability into my baseline business, whatever I'm doing? Even if I am a village farmer, how can I make farming cool again with digital enablement to allow more young people to want to play there rather than, because what has happened to us, everybody is chasing the city because we are not making the village or the suburban look cool. We're not trying to enrich what they do every day. We have forgotten them. And because we have forgotten them, we're going to see mass urbanization, and the city will not be able to meet the needs of those people. So what they do, they become security and economic risk to everybody. So one of the things that must happen from a policy perspective is the traditional job that has the traditional jobs with the highest potential to absorb more people must be supported intentionally. We should start asking questions. And I tell you, it's actually part of the national AI strategy. We call it sectoral focus, to say, how can AI enrich, amplify, simplify, and make those non-cool job cool again, so that we can engage more informal youth, from farming to mining to fishing and all those kind of things. What more can we do? That somebody who has only learned basic 6 education can, of course, most of them are using mobile phone today. So they're using mobile phone. Mobile phone, I work in the industry, so they use mobile phone. So what can I do to make those industry cool again, so that the informal sector are not left behind and they can stay back and apply digital technology to meet their needs? And the other one that I want to say is that those of us who are already building, who are we building for? Can we start building for the informal sector? On how can I have a digital platform that makes the farmer who speaks only Ibibio, speaks Anang, speaks Kanuri, Fufude, to be excited? Is it the cattle rearers? Can I have an application for them that helps them to optimize their travel journey and it can speak to them in their local dialect? We need to start getting developers to build for this segment so that they begin to see technology that is more relatable, technology that is enhancing their productivity. And of course, when productivity is enhanced, it has direct impact on gross domestic product, which of course amplifies economic outcome and of course improves the well-being and the welfare of the people.
You mentioned something about GDP.
Yes.
I'm tempted to go down that route, but I feel like if I go there, I'm not sure how we're going to come back out.
Okay.
So I'll peg that. Maybe if we have a bit of time, we'll touch on that.
Okay.
But I think the next thing I wanted to chat about was the question of the limited absorption capacity for new job seekers in Africa today. So according to the Africa Development Bank, around 10 to 12 million youth enter the job market annually, and only 3 million formal jobs are being created. So we're already running at a deficit. The question there is that even if you do train all the job seekers who are in the market today, the market in Africa, the labor market, in terms of like demand for skill, demand for talent, cannot absorb this number of young people. How do we address that?
Okay. So
in your, and I think one other thing to just add as well is that, okay, you know what? How do we address that? Let me
yes.
answer.
So I'll speak from my own domain of work,
Yes.
Digital AI and technology, while referencing traditional truth that we know. Remittance is a big deal for us. It's one of the biggest contributor to our economy as a country. Everybody has an uncle, a brother sending money. Now, we must realize that even if we cannot absorb them, there is other part of the world looking for them. We can create systems that support talent to actually go to regions where they can become economic value multiplier, who can add value to the local economy whilst also living a more meaningful life. We cannot be sentimental about that. Even if you do not encourage it, people will find their path. And they will find a way that we feel we've lost them. But when we understand that they are contributing to the economy, then we support it. Then the second one is offshore jobs through business process outsourcing, which is growing rapidly, especially because when you look at US, UK, there's so much vacancy for advanced skill set. Now, look at Silicon Valley. More than 1/3 of Silicon Valley engineers are Indians. So the rigor as well requires some of us on this part of the world because it's a major stuff for us and all of that. So without understanding, freelancing business is growing. People call it gig economy, but I can tell you, gig guys are earning more than many of the directors in banks in Nigeria today. Let's be very sincere. And this is based on the multiplier effect of the currency. Because a junior developer who is earning $5,000 By the time you multiply that in the current naira currency, the guy is already eating about 7.5 million a month. That is a lot of money.
That's top 1%.
Just
Like in
1%.
Nigeria.
And this is a guy who is based somewhere in Ogun State or in Akwa Ibom or somewhere in Onitsha, who is doing a lot of work. So that is already existing. Can we create system to support these guys? And I give an example. India is doing that now in a big way. You see an Indian professional who has worked in the US or in the UK, they are going back home to set up tech clusters where they're training young people and they're using their own international credibility and best practice to secure freelancing job, which they now redistribute. Of course, the economic redistribution equation means that a young chap who can do certain basic technical skill can earn as much as $2,000 to $3,000, which by the time you multiply it in local currency, is still significantly higher than most guys who wake up 5 a.m. and get back home 12 midnight. So the first point I want to make is that there is huge opportunity in that domain that we must recognize. So the second point that we have to expand our pipeline, that is the number of people we are training in digital skill. We must be intentional. That we need to train more people. We're not training more people enough. We need to train more people. We need to have more like digital learning centers. NYC should become more like a reskilling program intentionally.
NYC being
a reskilling program. Yeah.
Like people who don't know what.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
NYC's National Youth Service Program for graduates in Nigeria is a compulsory program. Rather than just asking them to go teach in primary school where they had no value, why not just use that to reskill them? Even if they are still teaching in those primary schools or working in hospital, can you create an additional capacity program where they are also enriching themselves in that 1 year period? I can tell you, during National Youth Service Program, you have extra time. Can we say we have 10 hours extra learning to make yourself ready? So we need to expand our pipeline. And the third layer, which I believe we must be very intentional about, which also requires the government to support, is the success story that we have seen. We need to support them. The few guys who have set up, small startups, particularly training startups, digital skill startups, they need a lot of support to scale what they're doing, especially those that have proven that I can train 100 people in a year. If the methodology is proven, is scalable, why not support them to be able to do it for 1,000? Rather than spread the money out, to new guys to start all over again. Let's invest in our success story. In doing that, I believe that we can increase the absorptive power of the talents that we have, whether they go somewhere else, whether they are used locally, or whether they're able to pull in foreign exchange to Nigeria through offshore outsourcing channel.
I know that the Ministry of Communication and Innovation and the Digital Economy has a brilliant plan around this. So they're actually thinking intentionally about outsourcing our talent to other parts of the world. And it's good to see that sort of holistic end-to-end thinking about what are the skills that local African countries can also export, because it's also a form of international trade. I did a global economy class recently. We were talking about what do countries exchange, and talent and skills is one of them. So it's a way that we can also position ourselves to start to earn some additional forex as well if it can be institutionalized in some way or the other. One other thing, I know that we're also running out of time, is just, I think I'll ask you two more questions and then we can wrap up. And this is a question around, I guess, maybe, because clearly you're a tech optimist. I think the initial conversation has shown that. But for those who have the fear that, AI is taking away jobs and is leaving folks disadvantaged, is going to increase economic inequality. Also, when you hear terms like, deep learning, reinforced learning, large language models, natural language processing, it feels very like, this is a bit too much. How do you feel like, what kind of advocacy work are you doing? Or are you doing any sort of advocacy work? Or how do you feel like we can democratize that learning and also make it accessible to folks who, need it and can, use it to improve their livelihoods?
Thank you very much. I think that's the biggest role that we have to play now, making AI simple, accessible, and meaningful to people. And that's why I'm very proud to celebrate the support that we got from google.org about a year ago thereabout, which allowed us to launch AI in Hausa language, where we created a series of curriculum of 40 courses developed in relatable cartoon-like character in local languages, and of course, contextualized to everyday nuance, where AI was used to explain everything from the food they eat, why it rained yesterday, why does daddy like certain things, mommy doesn't like certain things, why does somebody has this kind of disease, patterns and all of that, which, with what we're hearing from the principal state Kaduna, so much excitement around, I want my child to go Ladia, because even the parents who are not educated, who have never been to school, now have a full understanding of what AI is and the mastery and the competence that AI brings. I believe that as professionals, we must not support modern colonialism, leveraging AI to feel that we are better than others. We must be intentional to equalize opportunities by making AI meaningful to people. And that may explain why, as early as 2019, my first book was AI for Kids, because I realized that if you do not make this thing relatable at a very early stage, like I wrote a book where I also used cartoon characters to explain coding, Python programming, machine learning to kids. Because if you do not do that, we're going to cut them off. Because using terminology, buzzwords, which some people use intentionally to feel high and feel elevated, it does not build an ecosystem. It's in the simplicity that warms people into what we're doing. And I tell you, that's one of the things I've seen the Honorable Commissioner, the Honorable Minister in Nigeria, that's Dr. Bosundi Tijani, driving for, having worked with him. And of course, somebody who has also worked in the ecosystem, leading the policy side, he understands the fundamental, which is we win with simplicity, we win with mass effect. We win with simplicity and we win with mass effect, so that we can make our population to count. If indeed our population would count, then that vulcanizer on the street, that fashion designer, that cattle wearer must understand AI and what it means to them and how they can leverage it for creating additional economic opportunity.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think it's really important, everything you said, in terms of the simplicity and also reaching as many people as possible. And here, the Future Development Program at the Oxford Martin School, they've actually also incubated Tabiya, a nonprofit organization that is focused on building a digital public infrastructure. And they've launched their AI tool called, it's a generative AI tool called Compass.
Wow.
And it's trying to help people in the informal economy to articulate their job experience and their skills in language that they can use to then, project their work positively to employers. So it's definitely aligned with the sort of thinking around how do you simplify and make AI tools more accessible and useful to people who need it the most. Thank you so much, Bayo. I think we can round up with one last question just to kind of encapsulate the conversation. So everything you said requires multi-stakeholder approaches. It requires actors in different, from policy space, from the education space, from the implementing space, from the research and academic space. How do you see that sort of cohesive approach or platform being developed to bring all these sort of different agents together? That's one of the things that the University of Oxford tries to do. That's one of the things that the Martin School tries to do. But in your own work, what are the 1 or 2, 3 key things that you would say that we can build an ecosystem approach to AI skilling, to future-proofing job seekers on the continent?
I think, like you said, is multi-stakeholders. Nobody has it all. And I think we have some Pan-African agenda. AU is driving those multi-stakeholder initiatives. We've seen some effort by organized group like GSMA, and then we've seen some of the global multinationals also trying to galvanize development agencies as well. I've tried to do a few works, but I think the country where I am, Nigeria, is doing something called AI Collective, being led by the Honorable Minister of Digital Innovation, Communication and Economy. And this is based on the fact that we amplify the outcome by bringing all stakeholders together. And the stakeholders are not just the techies, including the users, including the platform builders, including the hyperscalers who provide the GPUs, including the society group, the NGOs, including people of special skills who may be disadvantaged. Can we bring everybody together to contribute to AI agenda? I think every nation must make the collective mindset an integral part of national AI strategy, or else we're going to use AI to create more internal tension towards us as a nation than using it as an amplifier. That collective creates a lot of check and balance, make us accountable and make us be people first. People first means that AI is about people, not become another capitalist tendency. AI become a capitalist tendency where the smartest guy uses it to create products that will exploit others. But when we bring all stakeholders to the table, then there is a balance. We're not saying that we're not going to lose capitalism. We need capitalism because they must pay tax. But when other considerations are also embellished into the narrative, there will be some checks and balances. AI that is regulated, that follows compliance, that is responsible, ethical, fair, and most importantly, multiplies economic outcome. Because we must also be very careful not to create an overregulated system that has lost innovation. There must be a balance between innovation and regulation so that in being converging, nuancing our collective sense of responsibility for accountability, we do not stifle guys who want to create things that take us to the next level. That balance for me is what we need, and that's what a collective mindset does. Based on the traditional African Ubuntu principle, I am because we are. We are because I am. And that collective sense is what drives us and must drive or shape how AI is institutionalized for social development, economic productivity, and building the modern African continent.
I love that. I love that ending for the collective core, essentially, because that's what this podcast is about. That's what Africa Which Way Employment is about. It's trying to galvanize that collective action. How can we come together from different sectors, different experiences, different programming to build something that is useful for us for the future? Because this is the future. Africa is the future. The youth of Africa is the future of the world. Thank you so much, Bayo.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you again taking the time. And wishing you and the DSN team all the best in your endeavors. And I know that we're going to hear great things from you and your team.
Well, I will round up my thoughts quoting a very popular African proverb that says that if you want to go very fast, you go alone, individualism. But if you want to go really far, you go together. Collective spirit, the Ubuntu spirit. And that's what represents what we stand for as Africa, the collective value of what we're doing together. And I think that's our aspiration. That's what we should seek for. That we get much more value.
Thank you so much, Bayo.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And thank you to our viewers. We're reporting from Lagos today, and we appreciate you taking out the time to watch with us. Thank you.